Hey, hey, hey.
Hey man, how are you today?
I am doing okay. It's kind of gloomy here, 4 days away from Christmas, and it's just looking outside and thinking, well, if it was gloomy and cold, then I could have a fire, but it's not really cold here. So it's just gloomy.
I'm in Colorado and it's over 60 degrees here. I'm in short sleeve shirts and shorts today. I mean, it's just like, but there's supposed to be snow. There's a big storm coming in on Saturday.
Oh,
So
wow.
we'll see how that goes,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
here.
Maybe a white Christmas after all there in
It
Denver.
may be a white Christmas. And hey, Chuck, nice to see you. Thanks for the thumbs up, buddy. Appreciate that. Appreciate you being on here. As always, you're one of those guys that just keeps showing up, and we love you for it. Um, but yeah, I mean, the other thing I wanted to say is this really is our last live show for the year. And so some of the questions we're going to come up with is actually looking back and looking forward. But we're also getting some questions about some very specific things that I think we're going to start with. Are you okay with that?
Yeah,
And if you
sure.
guys are here and you don't know what you're here for, we are here for question and answer time. That's what we're doing here today. So that's all the things. So there's Merry Christmas. I don't know who rescue photography is, but that's fun. I have no idea what that's about, but I just saw that and thought, that's an interesting thing that just came up. So, you ready to start?
Yeah. Let's take the first one, and then we'll get to the kind of the wrap up, the yearly wrap up questions that
All right.
uh,
Terry's here as well. Thank you, Terry, for being here.
hey,
So we're
Terry.
going to start with this. This is really something that I think is changing a little bit, Carter. That a lot of people relied on email for so long, but emails aren't. I mean, they're still effective.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
face it, they are still effective. Um, but a lot of people are realizing that texts are even more effective than email right now, at least about getting a response. But I think there's some mix up. So I want to ask a question prior to asking this question.
Okay.
Okay. I know that for a long time, text was kind of wide open. And it's not like that anymore, from what I understand. There are rules around text, just like there are rules around emails now. Is that correct?
Yeah. There's uh, most of it is the carriers that have put rules in place rather than waiting for the federal government to step in and create a whole bunch of rules. So they proactively created a new sort of cooperative, between the carriers, the cell phone carriers. They created a co-op that sort of all shares information about what businesses are texting on their platforms, and I'm going to go into that a little bit, but whereas a lot of email, I mean, a lot of email is handled by the email service providers like Google and Gmail and Hotmail and et cetera. But
Hmm.
um, you know, so they handle some things too. But there's a lot more federal law in place with the Can Spam Act that covers specifically covers email spam and your rights as a business and your rights as a consumer. And so we're not seeing the government as heavy handed in the texting arena yet, but it's probably coming. And
Hmm.
I think that's what prompted this year the carriers to get serious about cracking down on um, messages that were going through their networks that were spammy or phishing or malicious, trying to get people to click links that would infect their computers or their phones and that kind of
Right.
thing. So they're really cracking down on that, trying to only let legitimate traffic through. So I'll just cover that then as part of this question, because I'm starting to hear from a lot of our customers and people in the industry saying, man, more and more of my customers is saying, I don't want to give you my email, just text me. And, they just prefer a text message. And you're right. It does, in a lot of scenarios, it is much more urgent, much more, a customer is going to read that text and there's going to be a specific action that's required and they're going to just do the action, right? Whether it's like, simple things like reply yes to confirm, or, to claim this special offer, click this link, or those sorts of things. So it's the very brief, very short. It just feels like it's very transactional and not a lot of flowery language and stuff that you see in these pretty emails that marketers like to send. So, but it's there's some rules. So earlier this year, the carrier started talking about something called A2P 10DLC, and it's a
everybody knows what that is, right?
Right. So I don't even know what it stands for, to be honest with you. It's the A2P is I'm not even going to go into it. It doesn't matter. Essentially what it means is businesses can no longer just use any number they want to and text anyone that they feel like. They now have to be on the radar of the cell network providers, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, etc., so that the number that is being used to text a customer is registered, and the business that registered the phone number also has to be registered. So they're using, you have to prove that you're a legitimate company. So if you're just a solopreneur, you haven't ever started you don't have an official business name, or you're not doing business as, or anything else, you don't have employees, and so you've never had to get an employer identification number through the federal government, it really limits your ability to use texting, because you've got to essentially provide an EIN. You've got to have an employer identification number to provide to these phone companies, so that they can prove, or they can look it up and say, yeah, okay, you've proved that you exist, that you're legit, that you're an ongoing concern, you're a real company, and you're not some scammer who's just trying to, scam people on our networks, customers on our network. So once you've confirmed who you are, then you have to confirm the phone numbers that you're going to use as a business to contact their customers with special offers or transactional email or whatever, or texts. Not only do you have to confirm or register those numbers, but you also have to register the reason you're using those numbers. So for large companies, they may use one number for transactional emails, like, here's a copy of your receipt, or click here to schedule, or, reply back in order to claim your spot, those sorts of things that are more transactional than they are marketing. And then maybe they use a different number for marketing purposes. Here's a coupon for 30% off on your next purchase. Click here to claim it, or that sort of thing. So they may have multiple phone numbers, and each one of those numbers has a special reason. So you have to, when you register those numbers, you have to tell those phone carriers, here's what I'm using here's the number I'm using, here's what I'm using it for to connect to my clients. And here's an example message that I will be sending through that phone number to my customers, messages like this. And it will, you have to verify that it contains a link, or that it contains a phone number or something like that in the message, because they want to know those things. And if you ever use those phone numbers for things that aren't approved or aren't registered in their list, then they're just going to automatically assume that that number has been hacked or is being used by a bad actor. And suddenly your phone number isn't reaching your customers with your text messages. So they've really gotten stringent with locking that down. They do have there's one sort of registration that is kind of a general use, and it applies to most of our clients, not all of them, but most of them, who send fewer than 5,000 text messages a day. And that's a pretty big volume of messages.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is for most people. That's way more than sufficient.
Mhm.
So if you're a small business that sends fewer than 5,000 a day, then you can have a mixed use number, one single phone number that you can use for a lot of different types of campaigns, including transactional and marketing messages on the same phone number. So it's a little bit more lax for the smaller businesses. But the bigger you are and the higher volume you send, they're really locking it down to make sure that they prevent the spam. And I got to say, it really has prevented a lot of it.
Mhm.
Not all of it, but I always hear people say, "Well, I still get all these, political campaign text ads and things like that." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that they
the
don't
law
count.
actually
Yeah.
has the law, the way that the feds wrote it, they have to allow political speech, and texting of that nature is allowed, and it's not sent through A2P 10DLC registration
Well,
provisions and stuff." So
maybe that explains then because I have realized that over probably the last 3 or 4 months, I'm not getting a lot of crazy text stuff that I was getting before. I have a rental property in Nashville, and I tell you, there for a while, every time I turned around, I had somebody texting me wanting to buy my property.
right.
I mean, all the time, and I would put stop, and it didn't work, and yeah, it was just nuts. But I haven't gotten those. I've gotten some phone calls, but I haven't gotten the text again. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder if maybe that's why that they've really cracked down on that.
It has reduced it. I don't know the statistics on how much it's reduced it, but it has definitely reduced the volume of scam traffic and stuff that's been using
Yeah,
texting. So Terry actually
interesting.
says, I would be very upset if a company sent me an unsolicited sales text. Exactly. And so in order to prevent that,
Hmm.
here's the second part to your question, Terry, or to the question that's been asked. If you want to send your customers a special offer, what do you need for that? So we've already talked about the phone number part and the registration part through A2P 10DLC. Now let's talk about what permissions you need to have to verify that you have the right to text someone at all. Because you don't have the right to buy a list of phone numbers and then just text them with special offers. You
Hmm.
don't have the right to rent another company's list and send them special offers, as like a joint venture kind of a deal, because these
Hmm.
people are not your customers. They didn't opt in to receive messages from you. So the opt-in part is actually very important. There's two things that technically should be done. Number one is you should give a consumer the ability to opt into your list. Okay. And that's like texting a special code to the number or something and just saying opt in, to opt your phone number into their list to receive special offers or to receive communications from them. Technically, that is a requirement. There is sort of a gray area. People get around that by saying, well, the law says that I have the right to communicate with my customers for 18 months after a transaction. So they're saying I have a scheduled appointment with this customer, which means that a transaction has begun. I mean, we haven't completed it, haven't gone to their house and done the work and received payment for it, but we're in the process in good faith of starting a transaction with this customer, and we have the right to be able to text them about the job, including any special offers that might apply to it. And so they oftentimes will not seek specific or explicit opt-in from their customers. And I'm on the fence on that. You know, depending on what you come to me with and say, hey, would you do this for me? I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and we're going to find out what you're trying to do and how you're trying to reach people, whether or not they're your customers. Can you prove they're your customers? Have you ever texted with them before? Those kinds of questions. And we're going to find out, whether or not that's something that um, you know, it's kind of the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. We're going to kind of figure out where you fall on that spectrum and figure out if it's something that we would recommend that you could avoid having to ask for the specific opt-in. The second thing you've got to do though is always, mandatory, the first message that ever goes out to one of your customers, the first time you reach out to them via text message, you have to put some way for them to opt out or unsubscribe from the list, from receiving of future text messages. So that's the language that you see: reply stop to stop, or reply stop to unsubscribe, or reply stop to opt out, or that kind of thing. They have to be able to indicate to you via text message, the same way that you contacted them, to say, I don't want this anymore. So that needs to be automated. It doesn't need to be something that you have to go find their message and pull it up and see, oh, they opted out, and then you have to manually go remove them from your list. It needs to be, if they reply back with the magic word stop, it automatically removes them from your list from receiving any future communications. And that's really required. It really needs to be something that's a part of any. You don't have to put it at the bottom of your transactional emails if you're sending an appointment reminder or an invoice payment reminder or something like that. But you do need to probably put it at the bottom of every one of your special offers. So if you offer $30 off if you book your appointment early this year or whatever, you probably should put a reply stop to stop message at the bottom of that, so that if people don't want those kinds of messages, they don't have to receive those kinds of messages. And it's a really good idea that when somebody replies stop, you have the right to send one final message to them that just simply acknowledges that they've been removed. It can't try to upsell them or argue with them or plead with them to stay on the list or anything else. It needs to simply say, thank you. Your phone number has been removed from our list. And that's, you can send that confirmation. And I recommend that you do. It always upsets me when I reply stop and I don't get any confirmation back that so I reply stop again, and then I reply opt out, and then I reply stop all caps, thinking, maybe one of these combinations will, trip the wire information back. So don't leave them wondering whether or not you've removed them from your list. Just send them a quick confirmation that they have been removed from your list. So
okay, so I've got a question for you, all right, in regard to this. And I know we're kind of going long on this question, but I think it's important. So there's actually two questions. One is, we do have people that are like, yeah, no, I don't care about any of that. I'm gonna text my people, So they seem to do it and nothing happens. It seems to be okay. So my question is there, maybe it's less than 5,000 and that makes it okay. But what happens if the carriers go, nope, we're not going to do this? Do they just do what you said, just stop the number?
Yeah, they can. And that's purely at the whim of the carriers. And it could be that one carrier stops you and others let it go through and don't have a problem with you in the message. So every carrier can make that decision independently. But they're also looking at cues about how the messages are being received. Okay, if they're getting a lot of report junk, people just clicking report junk when they receive your text message, those add up, because that report junk, guess where that goes? That goes back to the carriers, so that the carriers know this phone number is sending stuff I don't want. And if they get a lot of that, then they're taking that as a cue that this is someone who's abusing the reasons that the campaign that they tried to get approved with us, and people don't want to hear from them. So we're going to block this number or not allow this number to go through, to send texts to our customers. But again, it's totally up to them. And,
Okay.
the reason that people get away with it, I think, is because they're sending messages that, even though it may not be, explicitly requested that I receive promotional emails from you, that maybe I trust your brand enough and it's a good enough offer and an attractive enough offer that I tolerate it and decide, well, okay, that's actually a pretty good deal. I'll bookmark this text and use it when I'm ready, or, claim it immediately or whatever. And so, that can be one reason that people get away with it, if it's a really compelling offer. But man, if it's not, you're risking a lot, because not only is your number getting tagged, as undeliverable, or as, we're not sending these messages through to our customers. But it also dings your ability to text with any number as a business, because that number is registered under your company. So your company is getting dinged too. And after a certain number of offenses, you may be locked out from being able to text your own customers or prospects because you've, played fast and loose with the rules.
Hmm. Okay, here's my final question about this. So I know that we have clients that we text on their behalf, and there are other companies out there that do the same. So is it our number that we have that's at risk, or when we text on behalf of the clients and other people text on behalf of the clients, is it those numbers registered with the companies who have told us do this?
Yeah. So we don't use any numbers that are registered to us to text on behalf of our customers. When a client of ours tells us they want to start a text campaign, the first thing we do is we go register their company with the A2P 10DLC list registry. And then once it's approved, once their company is approved, then we add the phone numbers necessary to execute the campaign that they want us to send. So now we've got a registered company with registered phone numbers, all of which are theirs. So
Okay.
if they, if they get complaints or anything else about the messages that are being sent, it's a ding on them, not on us. And it's we do that, on purpose, because that's the way that the carriers want it done. But it's also, it gives you the ability as a client to be able to direct multiple marketing campaigns, maybe multiple providers. Maybe we're doing one campaign for you, but you have another company that's doing a different campaign for you. Well, they can go register your company. I mean, your company's already registered, but they can go register another number underneath your company and use that number in their system to text your customers as well. But because it's a separate number, if it gets dinged, it shouldn't affect the other numbers that we're using on your behalf to text your customers the things that we're texting. So, I mean, that's the theoretical way that it's supposed to work. It's fairly new, though. I mean, this has really only been in place, really being enforced since late October. So there's a lot to be seen about how all this is going to play out and how stringent or how unfair or fair the providers will be.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's a lot of information on text, but I think it's timely because we do have a lot of people that are doing that. So here's my next one. Is direct mail still effective? In my world, I would say absolutely, 100%. 100%
In fact,
effective.
It could be a big opportunity right now.
Yeah.
The postal service is seeing fewer pieces mailed every day, and it's down to record lows. So at least in the past 30, 40 years. So it's not such a crowded place to show up when you're sending a flyer or something through the mail. It's going to get delivered and it's going to probably be seen. And that's something you can't always say when it comes to email. So it's probably a pretty good way to reach customers, but you got to be targeted about it. Sending out just to the entire city, you're going to blanket the city, you're going to waste a lot of money. So you got to work with somebody reputable, make sure that you're getting a really good list of addresses and that those addresses correlate to people whose demographics are the kinds, are of the sort that you want to actually reach,
Right.
People in this income bracket living in these neighborhoods that have houses that are at least 20, 30 years old, and, so on and so forth, so that that you're getting in front of people that need your services. That's the absolute best way to do it. I wouldn't do it any other way.
Gotcha. That's good. So we're gonna go on, and I want you to do one thing, and then I'm gonna do one thing. Looking back, what was the biggest lesson of 2023?
Why don't you go first?
So for me, I think the biggest lesson of 2023 is you have to just keep up. I think that's my biggest lesson that there are things that stay the same, but there are always changes in what we do. So in my world, when it comes to SEO and AI and all the things that are happening, I look back and it's like you have to be aware. You have to stay aware of what's coming down the pike, and you can't put your head in the sand and hope it just goes away because it's so much. So
Yeah.
that to me is the biggest lesson, for me. And I'm very fortunate because I'm very forward thinking. And so when new information comes, I just kind of go out and kind of get it. But there's so much in the technical. I mean, it's everywhere. And so yeah, that's really mine is you just can't put your head in the sand ever. As a business owner, as a marketer, in local, you just can't. You have to be aware. You have to stay aware and try to stay on top of stuff as much as you
Yeah, this year only accelerated the changes with AI and OpenAI showing up back in the spring. The changes just feel like they're coming faster than they've ever come. At least that's how it feels sitting in our seat, from
can.
our perspective as digital marketers. I would say the thing though that I learned this year is not so much that things are speeding up; it's that no matter how many things change in the way and the tactics that we use as marketers, there's one thing that still reigns supreme. It's still the number one thing that we would tell any customer, and that is that customer service matters most. That
Hmm.
if you're doing a good job putting the customer first and meeting their needs, then all of these changes, all of these things, all of the stuff that's going on around you and your business and the tactics that you use as a marketing or for your marketing aren't going to hurt you. They're going to help you. If you keep your eye on the ball and serve your customers well. That would be like the biggest lesson I think that I learned this year is the customers that focus on their customers are not going to be. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that could happen in terms of we don't know, with AI and all of these
Yeah.
things that are changing. But we know that if they still pay attention to serving customers well, they're going to be okay.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that too. I think both those things are things that we learned this last year. So here's the last question. Looking into 2024, what do you see that you think everyone should be aware of? You want me to go first on that one too?
Yeah, sure, if you want.
Okay. So here's what I would tell any business. I don't care where you are, who you are, small, large, whatever. I would tell you make sure you are branding your company and doing everything you can to get your brand out there. I think that those companies that have done a really good job branding themselves in their markets, whether it's local, regional, or national, will be the ones that will rise to the top in pretty much every circumstance. So, branding, I think, is more so than I've seen. I mean, I think branding's always been important, but I think even now it's even going to be more so going into 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, yeah. I would say going into this next year, something to be aware of is that marketing is getting more complicated, and there are more moving pieces now than there have ever been. More ways that the strategies interact with one another and integrate with one another. Data is becoming more and more important than it's ever been. I mean, it's amazing the companies that have good data, what they're going to be in a position to do in this next coming year. So they all interact, they all intersect, they all connect, and that's been true for a lot of years. But with AI being coming onto the stage in such a major way in the coming year, what we really see is that companies that have paid attention to getting good data on their customers, who've kept that data clean and made sure that they have it at their fingertips, they're going to be able to use that data for some fantastic growth opportunities. And I think 2024 for those companies will be a really good year. Or if you need to pay attention to your data, then 2024 is going to be the year to do that.
Yeah, and I would throw one more thing in is if you don't embrace some of the new things coming on with I think you're going to be left behind. And that's everybody. I think there's because it's just moving so fast and the consumer expectations are changing
Yes.
with it.
Oh boy,
So
that's
I think that's another thing that you should be aware of, no matter where you are in business. The way that consumers are wanting to interact with brands and the way that they are accepting AI and accepting certain things uh, is really phenomenal. It's very quick, um, and I think people need to be aware of that.
yeah, no, that's really good.
Yeah. So, anybody got any questions about any of that?
Chuck had a comment. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. From Ferris Bueller's
Man,
Day Off. Yeah, that's
that's
how that
true.
this year has felt. I mean, it's just been every month, major changes and announcements.
Yeah, yeah, it's been crazy. And Mark Hudson is on too. Hello, Mark. How you doing? Glad to see you here. Just I hope all of you have a very Merry Christmas since it's right around the corner. I don't want to forget to tell you that. But this is also this is as a podcast. It comes out on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Podvine, or your favorite player. And let me tell you guys, we do wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. There's going to be a replay next week if you guys want to tune in to that. We will have something up, but Carter and I will not be here live. But we will be ready with fresh content, ready to go the first week of January. And I can't, it's hard for me to believe we're hopping into 2024. It's just time certainly does fly.
Yep.
It is kind of crazy. So we just thank you guys so much for being with us this year, and have a great holiday. And we'll talk soon. See ya.
Bye.